Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for shopping in today. Today we're going to be talking about flash and speed lights and getting off the camera and things like that. Today we are doing flash and speed lights, and that's what we're talking about, right? If you understand flash, here's the thing, and I get this a lot when I'm doing some private instruction or even here in the store sometimes, right? I get the conversation that goes, I'm a really good photographer outside. But when I go in or I use my flash, I'm just not a very good photographer. And I've heard that line for a long time. And the thing is that if you're going to be a photographer, period, if you're going to be skilled, if you're going to produce good work, regardless of where you're at, regardless of the lighting conditions or challenges you've got, you got to understand lights and flashes. Photography is, it's all about lights. And so once you understand them, and you understand how to control them, and you understand what they do, you're going to be more successful. And here's the bottom line here at the bottom. Speed lights make bad light good. They make good light great, and they allow you to create pretty much anywhere, anytime, without any concern. So they're going to fix color. They're going to give you more light when you don't have enough. They're going to let you change and play with color to create something more unique and special. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but I understand a lot of people have misgivings and fear about flash. When I grew up as a kid, one second, Mr. Quint, would you run and go get a copy of the flash book? All right, I'll save that for the end. When I was growing up, my dad was a photographer. I'm sure some of you guys had parents who were photographers. And when the flash came out of the bag, it was like eye-rolling experience because there were settings that had to be made. There were adjustments that had to be done. My dad wasn't super skilled at it. And so the other downside is back then you didn't know if your pictures came out or not for like a week or two. And that's where the fear comes from, I think. It's like, man, when I was a kid, this was always painful. And so modern speed lights, this is not going to be painful, right? And this is the deal, that built-in speed light. My camera has a built-in flash, or at least most of them do. We've gotten to the point now where some cameras don't have a built-in flash. But if it's got a built-in one, what I wanted, it's bigger, it's heavier, it's complicated, it's got all these buttons and dials on the back that I'm going to have to learn and figure out how to set. But here's your reasons why. I need to move my windows around because I can't see very well here. My built-in flash, it's low power. It's only good for about 12 or 15 feet. So it doesn't have a lot of juice. It's really small, which means it's really harsh. And so the reason people don't like flash, what happens is you use your built-in flash, you take pictures and you get this ugly shadow here, or you get bad reflections off of eyeglasses. It's just not very flattering because it's small and it's right over the lens. It's just not in a great spot. It doesn't recycle very quick. So if we're trying to take pictures of our kids or our dogs or our pets running around and you need to shoot quickly, that built-in flash doesn't recycle very fast. It only recycles about, maybe 3 seconds or so. It's a normal kind of recycling time. So you can't shoot very quickly. Don't have a lot of control and it's ugly. If I add a speed light onto my camera, so this is my favorite speed light. We'll talk about a little bit more as we go forward. A lot more power. This has got over 100 feet of light when it's fully charged. So I can shoot further. It's a much faster recycle time. This flash can recycle from full power in roughly a half a second. So it's super, super fast, and I'm able to shoot, at least 3 or 4 shot bursts, depending what kind of distance I'm using and camera settings that I'm using. But I can shoot small bursts by adding a speed light onto it. It's easily modified. And we're going to talk about modifiers a little bit more in depth as we go. But if I want to soften the light, if I want to change the color of the light, if I want to change the angle of the light, it's super easy to do with just about any flash, any external flash that you're going to use. And it's a higher quality of light. So I can shoot it straight up. I can shoot it straight ahead, which is not pretty. I can bounce it. I can do a lot of different things with this light to control it. And then more importantly, I can take it off the camera. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But if I'm going to take this off the camera, put it maybe into a softbox or just at a different angle so I can get a different, more flattering look, I can add a small controller to the top of my camera and take my flash off camera and create a much nicer, more natural, or more creative look. So that's the biggest reason why you want to add a speed light to your bag. And here's the key. Just like with your system camera, getting off automatic is going to be the key to some better success. You know, there's no shame in the game in using the green auto settings or in using the subject, you know, the portrait modes and the sport modes and things like that. But if you want to really create, you want to have a lot of control, you want to get off of those. And that kind of same thing holds true when it comes to flash. And we'll talk to you in a few minutes about kind of my recipe for flash, but I'm not going to use automatic exposure. I'm going to use automatic exposure on the flash. We'll talk about that again in a few minutes, but getting off of automatic is going to be the key to being repeatable and successful, taking some control over the camera and taking some control over the exposures. And it's not hard. You know, a lot of times when I'm talking to new photographers and I tell them not shooting in manual because it's hard, shooting in auto or in at least like an aperture priority or shutter priority mode, taking over some control. Same thing holds true with shooting with the flash. If I just rely on the flash to do its thing, it's probably going to be okay most of the time. You know, and that's kind of been my line. It'll be all right, but you're not going to have the control. So shooting in TTL, which stands for through the lens. All that means is the camera and lens, camera and flash are working together to set your exposure. And so my recipe that I'm going to share with you guys here in a minute is kind of a combination of manual camera and automatic flash, and working those two things together simplifies the process, gives you more consistent, more repeatable results. You're not fiddling with camera and flash settings all the time. You can just kind of set it and go. So I think you guys are going to like that. At least I hope you will. So here's the thing, just like with your camera, whether you have a Nikon or a Sony or a Canon or a Fuji, whoops, hit the button one extra time. Tell you what, man, get me out of my environment and I'm all lost and stuff. Most systems, whether you're shooting with a Nikon branded system like SB5000s or Canon systems with 600 RTs or whatever your manufacturer offers, most of them are going to have a whole suite of different options. You're going to have triggers. You're going to have speed lights, you're going to have modifiers, and they all work well together. My only kind of beef, and this is, you know, my recommendation revolves around the Godox system, and I'm going to kind of explain to you why. My recommendations, when you guys come to me or you come into the store and you ask a question or we're talking offline, my recommendations are always based off of something that I've used and that I'm comfortable with, and that I think is going to offer the best combination of value and performance. You know, if you shoot with a more expensive camera, that's great, but if your performance isn't significantly better than a less expensive camera, sometimes you just spent some extra money that you don't need to. And flashes kind of work out the same way. And so I do a lot of different kind of things. I have a lot of different needs for different flashes. And so rather than having like some Nikon speed lights, and then maybe some Westcott speed lights or some Savage lights and kind of try to make everything work, my recommendation comes from what I use, what I'm comfortable with, and what I think offers a really good value and a really good performance. But my recommendations almost always come back to the Godox system. And I kind of run through this. And the reason I like the Godox system is really simple. First off, it's a great value. It's a fully integrated system, just like with my Nikons or your Sonys or your Canons, where you have a system of cameras and lenses and drives and other accessories. Your flash system needs to be the same way. And what Godox has created over time is a full system. So there are multiple speed lights in their system that all work together. They also have, let me grab it because I have it back here. A wide-ranging system of off-camera or studio strobes as well. And so what's great is all of these things work together. In my case, and you know, a lot of people that I talk to, that I meet over time, all they want is a simple speed light. And so we're going to find the proper speed light for them. But over time, and some of you who are here have run into this, Over time, maybe you grow, right? Your needs grow. You want a second speed light. Cool. Maybe you want to get into some studio photography. If JD is here today, pretty sure he is. JD has grown his flash kit a good bit. And the good thing is, if you stay in this ecosystem, there are 3 different speed lights. And I think currently 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 5 different off-camera lights, studio strobes, and they all work together. So it's not like, oh, I need to go from my V1 to something else, and now my V1 is trashed. And a lot of times with the manufacturer, you run into that. Nope, my V1 works perfectly great with my AD200s, and if I have the need to move into an AD600, they still work together. My triggers all still work together. As a matter of fact, a couple of the speed lights have a trigger system built into it. Let me show you here. So this trigger in my V1, and this is my favorite flash, in the V1 I have a trigger. So I have 3 different groups and channels and everything that I can control here from here. And so I might be getting ahead of myself slide-wise here. If I'm shooting at a wedding reception or a big dinner party in a big room or something like that, I can have my speed light on my camera. So I'm taking pictures of you maybe at a table or something, like some things that are up close. But I can also take up to, I think, 100. I only have 3, but that's enough. But I can take these and scatter them around the room and kind of light the room as I'm taking pictures and controlling all of those other lights right from the top of my camera. So I don't have to run across a ballroom to adjust the power on a light. I can just go over here and say, hey, make C light a little bit brighter. And it's that simple. What that lets you do, if you're getting into that kind of a thing, taking pictures of people on a dance floor, people at a dinner party, you get a whole room and you light that whole room. You don't have a sea of black. And so a much nicer, more natural kind of a look. If you want to get really creative, you can put colors onto here and make the background red or blue or something like that if you choose to. So, and like I said, if I needed more power for a shoot tomorrow, I just buy an AD600. It works completely with my system. Everything talks and works together beautifully. And again, as important as anything, without breaking the bank. Always super important. So here we go. We talked about flash modifiers. Don't let your light be naked. And of course, I've shown you 2 of them already, right? This is the flash modifier that I use on my V1. Now, the cool thing about this flash, there's a set of magnets inside this head, and there are magnets on all the modifiers. So I just pop them together. You know, back a number of years ago, and still, in fairness, Gary Fong made a really great system of on-camera flash modifiers, but they all attach with Velcro. And so if you're at a church or a wedding reception, you have to take it off. It goes, and you make this huge, loud Velcro ripping sound. With magnets, you just pop it off and stick it in your pocket. That modifier is part of this kit. So if you're going to buy a V1, if you're looking for a flash kit, I love the V1. I think you should also get the modifier kit. So this has got a couple of different filters. It's got a flash card. It's got barn doors. It's got a snoot, bunch of things, and they all just pop on with magnets. And it's a really cool system. The other thing that's really popular, we've used these for a long time, and this is kind of a twist on the Gary Fong kit and the Gary Fong systems, is this from Magmod. Now, the thing I love about Magmod, one, they also use, where'd my thing go here? Lost. Magmod also use magnets. Pull up this slide, I guess, while we're talking about it. So again, I can pop it on and off really quick, and it squishes up. If I need to, I can stick this in a pocket. And the way that they work is that this band will wrap around the head of your flash. I have it here on my AD200, and I'll explain to you why. But this is pretty much universal. I have yet to run into a flash that this won't fit on. It's really powerful. And the reason I'm not taking it off is because I'll get a blood blister when I stick it back on. It's really, really tight. But I pop that on and I'm good to go. What I love about Magmods, this particular combination is the Magmod with the ADs, is space. this gives me a light that is very similar to what an umbrella would be or a small softbox would be, but without the space. And so I can stick this up in a cramped room, like in an office, put it on a light stand and create some good, soft, flattering light really easily. So I love the Magmod kit for stuff like that. I can also put it, if for some reason I lose or can't find my AK, I can put that strap on here and I can attach my Magmod to my V1. So it's about as universal as it gets when it comes to modifying. And what I like about them, why I said don't let your light shoot naked, flattering light is always going to be softer unless you're looking to create a hard, hard edged kind of high fashion look. Sometimes is what people are looking for, or if you really want to accentuate shadows and things like that in grizzled old dudes. Normally you want a really soft, big, flattering light, and that's what these things all kind of do. Whether you're using a softbox or an umbrella or a beauty dish, or even just a diffusion cap like this, which to be quite honest is kind of what the Magmod is. The whole idea and goal of that is to give you the light that you're looking for. If you want to warm it up, you can bounce it through a gold umbrella or add in a warming gel. This comes out of the filter kit for the V1. So if I add this to my light, it's going to warm everything up. It's going to definitely show a different color cast, and change the color, give you some more creative tools to work with in your pocket. If you're still kind of on the fence about using speed lights, you can always use things like reflectors to kind of move your sunlight and bounce it where you want to. I do a good bit, or used to do a good bit. I will hope to again here soon. Some on-site studio work, and so bringing in a whole pile of stands and reflectors and umbrellas and soft boxes can really be a drag when you're working as a one-man show. And so some of these modifiers kind of let you eliminate those. It's all about appropriate. So I can come and create a really good looking headshot with just a Magmod. Someone's got a question here about 2 speed lights and 2 triggers. Do I use Godox and Magmod together? Oh, dude, I'd already answered that question. Yes, there is my man, JD Parker. He is one of my pals here in Charlotte. And yeah, hit me up after class. We might be able to come up with some kind of something for you, buddy. Nuts and bolts. We want to get off the camera because remember we talked about, right? Your built-in flash, it's hard, not super flattering. It's coming straight at you. You get bad reflections. You get bad shadows. If your subjects are backed up against a wall, you're going to get that really ugly shadow here. And if you shoot vertically, you're going to get a really ugly shadow down one side. So we want to talk about the nuts and bolts of just painlessly getting off the camera, and being able to have some good control. Let's all this hop in. All right, but so I'm about to introduce you to what I think is one of the most important things I've learned over the years of teaching and shooting with flash. First things, you have to have a good understanding of how shutter speed, aperture, and ISO work together. That exposure triangle that we've talked about. We've talked about it in the essentials class. We talk about it all the time in terms of becoming a photographer and understanding truly how all of these things work together. Shutter speed, when we're talking about light and flash, shutter speed controls how much ambient light I'm going to see. Now, when I do this class live, it's much easier to show you. I can't show it to you through a PowerPoint, but if I were to take a picture with a flash at a high shutter speed here in the room, I'll just say 250th of a second. You guys have seen this photo where your subject comes out really good and properly exposed, and your background is completely black or really, really dark, and it looks very jarring because there's no balance. If I were to slow that shutter speed down, so instead of 250, I go to like 60, so my shutter speed's a little bit slower, I'm going to get some ambient light and my background's not going to be quite so dark. And so you get a better balance of exposure between your flash lighting up your subject and your ambient light lighting up, not getting so dark. When you're setting your exposure for flash, your aperture controls how much flash power. So whether my flash is good for 8 feet or 20 feet or 50 feet, I can control that by adjusting my aperture. If I'm shooting at f2 or f2.8, I'm going to get a lot of light out of that flash. If I cut it down to f16, I'm only going to get a little bit of light out of that flash. So This is sometimes going over a lot of folks' heads, and I totally understand that. You need to go and try it. There's some homework parts of this. And then ISO is going to control the overall brightness, the overall power. So if I need some extra light, I can turn up my ISO, and that's going to help. And that's when I say extra, not make it brighter, make it more powerful and throw further. I'm going to show you here in a second. This is the slide that you guys want to, that you guys probably want to grab and move. This is what I call the 100-400-4 rule. And I've done this for a long time. I've taught it for a long time. And then I read it in a book. So it kind of gave me some validation. Back to what I was saying earlier about auto and manual and getting off of auto and shooting some manual, some auto. This is the catch right here. So if you want to make your flash photography really easy when it comes to things like events. So we're shooting at a birthday party. We're shooting at Thanksgiving dinner, all of those kind of things around the house that you're taking pictures of, that you get your flash out and you're like, oh, it looks awful. Oh, it looks terrible. You shoot them with your mobile phone, or you shoot them without a flash and just jack your ISO to the sky to make enough light. And then you're never satisfied. I have this conversation a lot. So I'm talking to all 36 of you. Holy cow, 36 of you guys. Awesome. This is going to make things simple. I started doing this years ago with my event photography, and be rolling around a ballroom or a dance hall all night, making changes with every other picture to get my exposures right when I fell into this. So it's the 100-400-4. Your camera is in manual. So you're in manual exposure. You're going to set your shutter speed to 1/100th of a second. You're going to put your lens to f4. You're going to use ISO 400, which means you're going to turn off your auto ISO. Manually set to 400. So these things, this exposure right here does not change. You're going to leave that locked. You're going to put your flash on. You're going to use the modifier of choice, whether it's a Magmod, whether it's a diffuser dome, anything like this. And you're going to put your camera, your flash, in the TTL setting. That's all you have to do. So we got some people rolling in, so it's going to get a little bit noisy here in a second. So obviously we can't shoot live because we're not in person. But when you do that, what happens is this, you guys. So 100-400-4. Let me back up a little bit so I can explain how these numbers work together. We talked a few minutes ago about ambient light and getting away from the completely dark background. 100th of a second is going to, in most cases, is going to let in enough ambient light to not be pitch dark. And if I've lit up the room with some additional lights, it'll certainly work with that. So now my background is not completely black by using 100th of a second. You take a couple of test shots and you see that everything is a little bit dark, bump your ISO up a little bit. Go from 400 to 800 or from 400 to 1000. Don't worry about noise because 1000 ISO is plenty noise free. So if you still don't have enough ambient light, you don't want to make a big change to this. You can drop your you can drop your shutter speed down a little bit. Maybe go from 100 to 60, but I don't want to go below 60 because if I drop my shutter speed below 60 and people are moving or talking, I'm going to get a little bit of blur. So I want my shutter speed to be decently high. And I like to go with 100. Also makes it easy to remember, 100-400-4. So 100th of a second gives me some ambient light, stops my motion, stops most of my action and movement, things like that. F4 is going to give me a decent amount of ambient light. It's going to give me a pretty small depth of field, so my background's not super sharp. It's going to let in enough light that my flash is going to be efficient too. So I'm not going to be firing off my flash at full power each time. And that's also what ISO 400 does. So the combination of a moderately fast aperture and a moderately high ISO, when my flash is fully charged, it's not going to have to put out that full charge each time. So now I can take 2 shots really quick. So I get a couple together or a group of friends together, and I can take 2 pictures quickly because I didn't have to fire off all of my power that I had stored up in the flash. So if it's too dark, bump up your ISO. If it's too bright, you can drop your ISO or maybe increase your shutter speed a tiny bit, but you always want to have that nice balance between foreground and background. And remember, your camera is in, these are your manual camera settings. Your flash is in your TTL settings. So your flash is going to control. What's cool with this, and again, it's easier to show you live when we're in person, and we're going to have to kind of rework this so we can do some stuff live. If I'm shooting 3 or 4 feet away, the flash and camera are going to work together, and the flash is going to put out an appropriate amount of light so that my subject 3 feet away doesn't get blown out. And if I have a reasonably enough powerful flash like a V1, if my subject is 25 feet away or 30 feet away, the flash and camera are still going to work together, and the flash is going to put out more juice and light everybody up. I promise you guys it works. Every once in a while I get a little bit of pushback about this. Go and try it, and I promise you it'll work. And again, not always going to be perfect, but it's a starting point, and I've shown you or told you how to do that, how to fix it. If it's too bright or if it's too dark, make one adjustment, and that's the catch, right? It's all about simplicity. So if I start playing with shutter speed and aperture and ISO, the people I'm taking pictures of got bored and left. Now I don't know what I did to try and fix it, and so I've completely got things kind of jacked. So I want to keep everything simple, adjust one number if I can, and this setting, this recipe, does the trick for that. And obviously we're not going to shoot live today. All right, so I'll bring this picture up just as kind of a quiz, you know, in terms of which one was taken with the flash and which one was not. And usually it's about 50-50. This picture here, the brighter picture of the two, is the ambient light shot. And so this was just, camera was set to whatever it wanted to be, and I got that picture. That's how it looked. This picture, the darker picture, is the one that I used flash. And to get this kind of a look, to get this kind of effect, to be honest, you guys, it's the exact opposite of the 100-400-4. I set my camera for no exposure. So a really high shutter speed, I think this was at like 2/50th of a shutter speed, an f/22. So that when I push the button, I get a blank screen. That way I know my background and everything is going to be completely dark. Then I turn on my flash, and usually I'm going to put my flash in manual for something like this, and I'm just going to play with my power settings until my flowers are lit up the way I want them to be. So it's really a pretty simple thing, but that's how you create that effect. Bright sun. I mean, these two pictures were taken 30 seconds apart. This wasn't at night. This was just super underexposed with a little bit of flash to light up my flowers, and that's all I wanted. Don, yes, you're right. I'm going to bring out Scott's book here in just a minute. You know, I had started shooting with the one, for you guys who are reading in the chat, Don Green says, as an alternative, Scott Kelby recommends. Scott is my man, and I love Scott Kelby. I pretty much sit in on all of his travel seminars and things like that. And I was shooting the 100-400-4 for a while, and when Scott's flash book came out, I guess about 2 years ago, I was a little giggly when I read that in his book with his settings. And if you look at those numbers, they're essentially the same exposure value that I was using. So yeah, that's when I said yes. Then I read about it and got validation. It came from Scott and in that book. So yes, thank you. Yeah, Don, and I will second and third that. I'll second the motion and we'll pass it. If you have any questions, any issues, any concerns, want to grow, grab this book. It's in stock in our stores. It's a pretty simple title. It's called The Flash Book. A number of you guys who are here, I know I've set a handful of you guys up with it. If you look at my copy of the Flash Book at home, it's got Post-it notes and it's got notes inside the book. This is where it all comes from, you guys, right here. And yeah, we like I said, we stock the book. What I love about this book, I want one thing. I want to learn how to make a spotlight gradient, and he's going to explain it down in one page. So there's not 42 pages about a technique or a look or a thing. How do I do this? Oh, here's how I use my bounce card. Just one thing. It's a terrific book. And an easy title to remember, The Flash Book. Yes, Penny, he does. And so, yes, now, this is one of the places where Scott and I will definitely differ. And since you guys are getting the chat going, I'll jump in with this. Scott does not like to use TTL flash. This is where he and I depart. I think that I was watching a thing recently with Scott, and want to say Rick Salmon, but it wasn't Rick Salmon, but they were fighting, maybe Joe McNally perhaps. And they were fighting because one of the guys uses TTL, and Scott doesn't. Yeah, Scott does love drilling down to quarter power, and that's a starting point. In my studio class, I'd bring in that case because when you're in a studio environment and you have complete control over all of the lighting, yeah, manual is the way to go. And when I'm doing that, I'll still stick with 100, 400, 4, and I'll light all my lights to quarter as my starting point. But when I'm shooting in a room where the light is changing frequently and I have a lot of variances, I find it's definitely easier to use TTL over full manual on the flash. But yeah, I love getting into conversations about this sort of stuff. Next, let's move on. Man, that was quick, which is great. All right, so you guys know how to find me. I need to update this finishing card, but you can find me at Cardinal Camera, obviously on Facebook, or you can email me, Charlotte at Cardinal Camera. You can give me a call. If you want to hit me up directly, there's a couple of ways to reach me there. You guys know I always like talking about this kind of stuff. If you need help, need some hand holding, need to gripe, have a question, you're really frustrated, hit me up and find me. We'll talk about it and get you straight. Okay. All right, you guys all have a terrific weekend. Thank you so much. Be safe, go out and shoot. Hope to see you next Saturday. Have a good weekend.
Be excellent to each other.